everybody. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here, and thank you for your willingness to participate tonight. We also want to say good evening to our viewers who are joining us on the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and also joining us tonight on WGHL's live platform. So thanks to all of you. If this is what you are choosing to watch tonight, we know that you realize one thing, and that is that what happens in the city of Kingsport matters very, very much to the almost 60,000 people who call this incredible city home. We also know that you probably realize that what happens in Kingsport matters a whole lot to what happens in this entire region. This city is critical, and you know it, and that's probably also maybe why you're joining in. And maybe it's because you're my mom. Mom, hello. And to all of you, I know your family members are watching tonight, so we're glad you are here. We are in a relatively empty room. And that is, of course, because we are continuing to be in a pandemic. And I want to say congratulations to everybody here who's tried to do the hard thing, which is have a candidate forum while also maintaining social distancing and all the stuff we have to do. So thank you all to all. We appreciate your efforts. We are going to go over some rules so everybody knows what the rules are, and then we're going to hit it. And I think you're going to find this moves at a fast pace. That's the goal anyway. And we're going to let you know just how fast it needs to go, and with some cards that will be flying in the air here in a few moments. For our viewers at home, I want you to know this. I hear that this is, for some of you, the third forum of today. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Get the Gatorade. I mean, it's been a long day for you already, so thank you all for coming tonight. Let me read the rules that were prepared by the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce as they got ready for this. You're probably familiar with them, but I want to make sure the folks at home who are watching this know. Each candidate will have an opening and a closing statement. Each question asked will have a specific time limit set. Heads up, kids, none of them are longer than 2 minutes. So brevity is the name of the game tonight. For 1 minute questions, our timekeeper, Ms. Laura Barnett, she will hold up a green card to indicate that you have 30 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. That's for the 1 minute questions. And I'll tell you how long the answers need to be. And then a yellow card will come up to signify you have 15 seconds remaining. And a red card, well, you know what that means. Time's up, right? And time to wrap it up. So what happens if you exceed the allotted time? I hear a timer's going to sound. It may be large, it's going or something like that, but a timer will sound, and that'll let you know it's time to wrap it up. For the 2 minute questions, our timekeeper will hold up a green card to indicate that you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow card to signify you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red card will be held up when time's expired. If you exceed the allotted time, same deal. The order of the responses has been determined tonight by a drawing that was held before we began the forum, and we're going to read that list in the order that they were drawn. The candidates are seated tonight around in a circle, which you can't see if you're joining us by video, but they are here according and seated by the number that was drawn. And so I'm going to read the names to you right now. The first to answer the first question will be Joe Carr. Betsy Cooper will be up next, followed by J.S. Moore, Paul Montgomery, Bob Harshbarger, Colette George, Sarah Buchanan, and Wesley Holmes. We will draw names at the end to determine the order of responses for the closing statement. So there'll be a second drawing, and then that way, it's our attempt to try to make sure someone doesn't get stuck going first every time, just to be on when they sit. Responses will alternate so that all candidates, well, most of you will have a chance to answer a question first. But we don't have enough questions for all of you. We have, by the way, 9 candidates on the ballot, 8 of them here tonight. We don't have 8 questions, or else we'd be here a long time. And so we have 5 questions. That means the first 5 of you will be answering the question first. By the way, if I'm wrong on any of this or mess any of this up, you're going to yell at me and make sure I'm doing it right. Thank you very much. So again, we're live on Facebook. These answers also will be disseminated to the Kingsport Chamber membership via the Question of the Day email series. I think we got it. With that, we will begin. By the way, the candidates will be coming to the chair seated just right here, and they will be all answering at this place. So fire up your pedometers. You're going to get your steps of the day in here tonight as we go through the 5 questions. All right, we're going to begin first with candidate Joe Carr, and the first question is, we want to get to know each of you. So please take 1 minute. This is a 1 minute question to introduce yourself and tell our audience one thing about you that people may not know. Thank you. Joe Carr, 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Carr. I'm
running for Kingsport Alderman, of course. I'd like to thank the Chamber for having me, Josh Smith for moderating, and everyone that's tuning in at home. If anyone doubts my commitment to running for Alderman, I'd just like to say that I'm missing my weekly Bible study to be here. So if I go to hell, I blame Miles Burdine. I'm kidding, he's a great guy. But I was born and raised here in Kingsport. I graduated Dobbins Bennett. I've lived here almost all of my life. Like I said, I'm a realtor, so I don't just sell houses, I sell Kingsport. I try to get people to realize what a wonderful place this is to move and raise a family. The slogan for my campaign is Rekindle Kingsport, and I'm running to try to get us back on track and leading the way in the Tri-Cities again.
Joe, thank you. And we'll now move you out, and the next person to come up to answer the same question will be Betsy Cooper. Now, I'm going to ask the question again, but I think we'll probably get to the point you're tired of hearing the question, but just so that you know, the question again, to get to know you, take 1 minute to introduce yourself and to tell our audience something about you that others may not know. Okay. 1 minute.
Good evening. There's no greater challenge and no greater honor than to be in public service. That's what Condoleezza Rice said several years ago. It is my honor to be on the Board of Mayor and Alderman for the last 4 years, and I'm up for the challenge to serve for the next 4 years if elected. My goal in public service is to get back to Kingsport because Kingsport raised me. I was born here. It educated me. It gave me a good job. I taught school here for 31 years, retired after teaching 31 years in the Kingsport City School System. And it's a wonderful place to call home. What you might not know about me, let's see. My mother went to Jackson Elementary. I went to Jackson Elementary, and my first teaching job was at Jackson Elementary School in Kingsport. So I feel very connected to Kingsport and committed to Kingsport, and if elected, I will serve you the best I can.
Thank you. The question again that candidates are answering is 1 minute to tell us about themselves and one thing you may not know about yourself. Candidate J.S. Moore.
My name is J.S. Moore. I'm born and raised in Kingsport, graduated from Sullivan South High School, Northeast State, East Tennessee State University. Since 2006, I've been a published author. I've published over 36 books. I lived abroad, lived in Japan, done a lot of traveling, but there's no place in the world that I would call home over Kingsport. I love this place. I think it's important to keep Kingsport unique. We need to maintain our unique identity. We need to play to the strengths of this city. We talk about growing, but I think that if we took care of this city better, it's going to grow automatically. Thank you for having us out today, and look forward to the rest of the questions. Vote on May 18th. Vote for J.S. Moore, or just vote. Be active. We only have 5% of our population that are actually voting. It's important to get out there and vote, have your voice heard. Thanks.
Paul Montgomery, up next to answer the question, something about yourself, who you are, maybe something we don't know. 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you, Chamber, for inviting us here this evening. I'm Paul Montgomery, retiree, Eastman retiree from 23 years of service there. I'm here, and I've been in this room several times, working with people similar to you who have making Kingsport better. And I'm running to serve Kingsport citizens with like-minded people to make Kingsport even better than it is today. Something on a personal note to know about me. I have over 30 years of business experience, over 30 years of volunteer experience. I have served on nursery school board here in Kingsport. I served on the Board of Education when I served there for 2 years as president. And I was on Governor Bredesen appointed me for the board, Tennessee Board of Regents. I served there for 6 years. Currently, I'm on the King University Trustee Board. Vote for me May 18th.
Thank you. Bob Harshbarger's here, answering the question in 1 minute, who you are, and also something maybe we don't know about you.
Well, good evening, Kingsport. I've had the privilege of being raised, educated, and working here in Kingsport I have 2 children, and my responsibility as a father is to make sure my children have as good or better opportunities than I have. I'm a licensed pharmacist. I graduated 10 years ago, so this past decade has been a whirlwind for me. I've successfully run the small family business for this past decade, and that experience has taught me how to problem solve and deal with challenges on a daily basis. I want to focus on 3 different things: economic development, more specifically small business development. I also want to continue to improve our infrastructure and prioritize academic success. I appreciate your vote starting April 28th and then Election Day, May 18th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next, answering the question, who you are. And something about you maybe we don't know. Colette George.
Thank you. I'm Colette George, and I'm broker-owner of Blue Ridge Properties in downtown Kingsport. I've been a realtor here for the last 29 years, which means I've worked with people of all ages, moving into the area, moving up in the area, first home and last home. I have invested in downtown Kingsport by building a brand new building down there. We've opened up about 4 years in that location, which has been a wonderful time to be downtown. I am currently an alderman and running for re-election. I think most people know that I have a peacock named Pablo. You may not know that it is currently mating season, and I'm hoping to have baby peacocks. And there's not an ordinance in Kingsport that says you're not allowed to have a pet peacock. I believe in Kingsport, and I think it's very important that we focus on quality of life issues so that young families will want to come live here and raise their family, and we will also attract people of all ages to our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, candidate Sarah Buchanan.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Buchanan, and I'm running for Alderman. Tonight, you're going to hear about why I am the best candidate for Alderman. In my 20 years experience in public service, I have created conditions necessary for economic growth. I have written business-friendly policies, and I have delivered public use projects on time and under budget. I have learned through this experience that strong leadership is critical to moving forward progress in our city. Tonight, you're going to learn more about my experience and my vision for Kingsport and how I feel that we can move things forward. You'll learn that I am a person who deals in evidence and data, and that I always want to be transparent in speaking with the people. And one thing you might not know about me, when I was at Dobbins-Bennett, I won the Best Speaker Award for the state of Tennessee for 2 years in a row, which has never happened since. And I was also the #2 debate team for high school debate at Dobbins-Bennett for the state. So, thank you.
Final candidate to answer question number 1 tonight is Wesley Holmes. 1 minute.
So hello, I'm Wesley Holmes, and I thought this is where I renewed my license tags. No, I'm just kidding. I do have a sense of humor. I grew up in East Tennessee, spent my entire life here. Went to ETSU, got a degree in computer science, and I write software. Is what my career's been. Built a business here in Kingsport. I've hired about a couple dozen programmers that live and work here and have families here. So pretty proud of that. I spent a lot of time focused on the future and looking forward in economics, looking for disrupting trends. And I think there's a lot of those headed our way right now. So having that, I really want to bring a future perspective to the BMA and kind of give them that rounded view. I think having a diversified BMA is very important. So really, a vote for me is a vote for the future, so vote for them.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the candidates. We have learned around one of the questions. It's hard to introduce yourself in 1 minute. We've also learned you can own a peacock in the city of Kingsport. I did not know that. So congratulations on the first answer. And now we're going to move to the second person in the drawing. You'll answer this next question first. And you're going to find that for some of these, it gives you a chance to maybe double down on some things you've already told us about yourself. Question number 2, why do you want to serve on the Kingsport Board of Mayor and Alderman? What makes you different? And therefore, what makes you a better choice for Alderman when compared to the other candidates? And what are your top 2 priorities that you hope to accomplish during your term? What could be a 30-minute speech is a 2-minute question. So you have 2 minutes, and we start with Betsy Cooper.
The question about why I wanted to run for alderman. In 2020, we sat upstairs and we had a strategic planning meeting with city leaders and city staff, elected officials, and we talked about how to move Kingsport forward. It was a lot of initiative, a lot of enthusiasm came out of that meeting, and that was in February, and then in March, the whole world came up to pause, and we paused all the initiatives that we had talked about. And so we spent about 4 or 5 months just kind of trying to react to what was happening in our world. And slowly, things started to open back up. And so some of the projects that we talked about in 2020, we revisited 2021 in this room with their strategic plan. So a lot of the projects that are on the horizon, they're starting to start up now. So one of my reasons for running for alderman is I want to continue what we started in 2020 and we had to stop. So I think that 2021 is going to be a great year for Kingsport. I think there's a lot of things happening in Kingsport. We're moving in a very positive, right direction on all fronts. With our housing market, with our economic development, with our jobs, we're doing things really well. So I think that we need to continue what we're doing, and I think that 2021 will be a pivotal year for Kingsport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question currently facing the candidates is this: what do you want? Why, rather, do you want to serve on the Kingsport Board of Mayor and Alderman? What makes you different, and therefore what makes you a better choice for Alderman when compared to the other candidates? And what are your top 2 priorities that you hope to accomplish during your term? 2 minutes for Jan's Ford.
Okay. Well, there's 2 things that I'm going to be a fighter on. One thing is to help our homeless. We just got CARES Act money that they haven't decided exactly what's going to happen with that. We can invest a portion of that in a homeless shelter. Also bringing in something like Jobs Corps to get people trained in a trade skill to get them off the street and helping in society. The other thing is, in the past 2 years, there were over 40,000 signatures collected opposing the medical monopoly of this ballot. Now, the ballot is a sponsor here at the Chamber, but we are seeing little by little the things that Danny Cook warned us about. I myself had dealings with ballot and had to take it to court, and the judge dismissed their case with prejudice. So I think this area, not just Kingsport, but our region, is dependent on a hospital authority to oversee what I would consider as malfeasance. Personally, it's affected my family. I go to the VA for everything. I'm a veteran, but my family doesn't have that luxury. So we've learned to go to HMG instead until ballot can get this handled. I took my son to the emergency room and I got 10 bills. 10 bills from ballot. Not 1, but 10. And I took him to HMG and I got 1 bill. There's something wrong with that. I shouldn't have to sign in to my web portal online where I work at and use my healthcare spending account one time for 10 different checks. It should be 1 check. And Senator Crow passed something before he left office that would allow ballot to take someone's home if they're not able to make their medical bills. That to me is a travesty. Aldermen represent the people, and our incumbents here have shown time and again that they're not going to stand up to ballot. I will.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat the question just a few more times so we're all familiar with it. Number 2 of the evening, what do you want? Why do you want to serve on the Kingsport Board of Mayor and Alderman? What makes you different and therefore a better choice for Alderman when compared to the other candidates? And what are your top 2 priorities you hope to accomplish during your term? 2 minutes, Paul Montgomery.
Thank you. I've always been taught to less is been given, less is required. And I believe that. I have been richly blessed as an individual, and I want to give back to the city of Kingsport in a more tangible way. As I mentioned earlier, I have served in several different capacities throughout this city, and served in several leadership roles in this city, including this Chamber of Commerce here in Kingsport. I have worked on various projects that have been important to the city, such as the Medview Project and the the Hope 6 project. These are things that have made a huge difference, I think, here in the city of Kingsport. What I want to see different in Kingsport are my two priorities. I want to see our best people stay here. Those who are educated here, stay here, and have fine jobs, not only for my family, but for your family as well. It is very important that we retain our youth. We have such a flight, people leaving here, going to other cities, taking the best talent other places. We have the best talent. We need to retain them here in every sense of the word. So that is why I'm in it for. I want to see the citizens stay here, grow here for generation after generation. Thank you.
I'll read the question one more time, and then from here on out, you can just ask me if you want me to repeat it. I'm happy to do it. We want to know why you want to serve on the Kingsport Board of Mayor and Alderman. What makes you different and therefore a better choice for the position of Alderman in the city of Kingsport? And what would your top two priorities be if you are elected to serve? 2 minutes for candidate Bob Huxbar.
Very good. Well, I think I've been blessed to be a part of this candidate group. I can't say a negative thing about anybody. The one thing I think that sets me apart is my experience in small business. I've had to make those tough decisions, balancing the budget, making payroll. I think those go a long way when you're trying to run the city like a small business. The reason that I'm running are those two young boys I'd mentioned earlier, Bronson and Ethan. That gives me my edge when I wake up in the morning. It shows that I'm fully invested. I'm not going anywhere in this city. I want to make sure this city has a bright future. I want to make sure they have the same opportunities and even better than I did. Kingsport has always been a leader when it comes to Northeast Tennessee, and I believe we've advocated that position, and I want to do anything I can to make it the model city again. I want to embrace our true identity as an industrial city, and this has always been a city with good paying jobs, and above all else, I just want to make sure Kingsport's first. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't need to. Thank you. I'll introduce you though. This is Colette Jordan.
I'm going to do my best not to repeat anything that I did in writing and answer these questions. So the reason that I'm running is because you get Fun Fest tickets and really cool shirts from the chamber. And I'm also running because I truly believe in Kingsport. I want Kingsport to be the best city it could be. I am a small business. I am located downtown. I want my family to live here. I want everyone else's family to live here. And we have a lot of people trying to move in our area. I have been on the board for 8 years, and what you learn from being on the board is the speed at which government moves. A lot of the things that we really debated and talked about when I was first on the board are just now beginning to happen. And I'd like to serve one more time to see those projects come through. The pandemic did change the world, and it did stop some of the things that we had moving forward. It also gives people the opportunity to be anywhere they want to be and work remotely. We have so many people trying to move into our community from all over the United States. It shows we have put ourselves in the best possible position. We have worked very hard to keep solid infrastructure. We have wonderful schools. We have invested in our parks and in Bays Mountain, the Aquatic Center, and to the things that people feel are important. This is a great time for the city of Kingsport, and I feel very blessed to live here. And I'm going to do one more term, and that's all I'm going to say on this one.
Next to answer question number 2 is candidate Sarah Buchanan.
What makes me different as a candidate? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself and my story. I was born in Kingsport, I went to Westview, and then I went to Linview. And my family was lower middle class. We didn't really have a lot of opportunities. But one thing that did happen is a teacher took me out of the county schools and put me into Dobbins-Bennett and said, she will not be able to achieve unless she goes to a city school. Since that time, I went on to get 2 graduate degrees, and I became a diplomat in the Foreign Service, where I served for almost 15 years. So what makes me different is that I understand what it's like to have parents who don't have jobs, to be made fun of at school because you don't have the right clothes, to be left out of things because you aren't the right type of person. But in Kingsport, we have the opportunity to do something, to be more. And I want to be sure that the kids that are out there nowadays have the same opportunities that I have. I mean, it's very unfortunate that, you know, these types of situations happen, but we need to support the children, and we need to make sure that we understand what are holding them back, and to understand that all of them should have opportunities. I'm different because I have served for the federal government for several years. I worked in many different capacities on infrastructure, on job creation, on democracy, and on health, and that gives me an edge, and it makes me different and stand out from the other candidates. I've been in public service since 1999, starting out with the Peace Corps, and my top two priorities are working on jobs and making sure that we have the job and economic growth that we deserve, and also dealing with the issue of urban blight to make our neighborhoods safer.
Thank you. Next up is Wesley Holmes.
All right, thank you. So I'm really hoping to help Kingsport find its way into the future, right? I don't want it to be led by Johnson City and Bristol and other cities. I want it to find its own identity and really figure out where it's going. I do think that we've got a movement that's occurring with circular economy here in Kingsport that we could easily tag onto and make a nationwide name out of Kingsport, that we can recycle any plastic, so no plastic ends up in the landfill anymore, and no cardboard ends up in the landfill anymore. I think those are pretty promising things in today's world with circular economy. So I think those are two important things. But really, it's that forward-looking vision to the future that I want to bring to Kingsport. So an example of that is transportation and updating the city to be a smart city, right? I mean, I think we've got a lot of decisions over the next 10 to 15 years to make. So cars are going to start talking to each other with V2V technology. There's one called V2I, which is the vehicle infrastructure, where your cars are going to talk to the roads, the stop signs, the billboards. You'll get advertisements in your car just driving down the road. The city's got to start planning for that, right? If we're going to be repaving roads, doing all that, there might be sensors we have to start putting in. So I think we need to start budgeting and planning for that. And as we exit the pandemic, there's a huge modern monetary theory experiment going on. And I want the city to be ready to capitalize on that, because we have people moving here like crazy. There's going to be a lot of funding coming in from the federal government, and if we don't go after it aggressively and have a way to spend that aggressively in our economy, then other cities are going to take it, right? So I think that we need to be ready to take that and move it forward and really build our entire region and make this a place that my kids, your kids, everybody's kids want to stay and grow. And so we actually grow this region, and the business is growing it as well. So, it's very future focused. Vote for me is a vote for the future. So that's really kind of what I bring, is that future vision. Thank you.
The final candidate to answer question number 2 tonight is Joe Carr.
As the youngest candidate running, I represent the generation with the most at stake in our city elections. Simply put, I'm running to make sure we don't lose more of our best and brightest moving away. I'm running to rekindle Kingsport, and that means helping our homeless folks get back on their feet and off the streets, fully funding our first responders, resuming our role as the leading city in the region, and keeping our kids in Kingsport by emphasizing vocational education and making our community a powerful magnet for entrepreneurs and growing businesses.
Thank you very much. And that concludes question number 2. We'll now move on to our third of 5 questions for tonight. And here it is. What is your vision for Kingsport in the coming year and in 5 years down the road? And how do you see us getting there? Do you have a particular issue you'd like to address, or a problem you'd like to solve, or a project you would like to implement? Again, some of this is what you've already touched on here publicly tonight. Gives you a chance to really emphasize it or move on to your territory. That's question number 3. It's a 1-minute question, and the first person to take that question is J.S. Moore.
Well, within 2 years, I would like to see Kingsport explore the idea of burying our power line. We'd be the first city in the Tri-Cities to modernize the city. I think that Wes Holmes would be on board with something like that. R2-D2 up our city. Another thing would be fiber optic lines and free broadband. That's something that larger progressive cities are doing. What's wrong with a smaller city doing that? I think Kingsport could lead the way in the Tri-Cities. We could be a technological magnet for people too. You know, younger people want to go where that technology is. Why can't Kingsport be that? So bury the power lines and bring free broadband and fiber optic. It's a heavy price to pay, but at the same time, it's going to be worth it. The benefits are going to far exceed the price we would spend doing that.
Thank you very much. Next up is Paul Montgomery. Would you like me to read the question again?
Yes, please.
All right. Number 3. What is your vision for Kingsport in the coming year and the coming 5 years down the road? How do you see the city getting there? Do you have a particular issue you would like to address, a problem you would like to help solve, or a project that you would like to implement? That is a 1-minute question to Paul Montgomery.
I would like to see Kingsport stronger than it is today. And I see that by having a more vibrant downtown, more entertainment downtown, a place where people can go and see a show, go to dinner, and also we have a strong higher ed center. I would look at that to be a magnet that would draw others to our city to be educated, be trained, and I think that Kingsport has so much to offer with the economic base that we have in both the higher ed center as well as our public education. So Kingsport would be stronger in both as a magnet, strong schools, and also strong higher education.
Thank you very much. And up next is candidate Harshbarger. Question? Want me to repeat it? You good? Go.
All right, so first let me say it can't be just my vision. I believe it takes the entire community. The one thing I think we need is input from our community to start with, and also we've got some incredible leaders here in our communities. We just need to reach out and make sure everyone is accountable. The things that I've touched on before, I want to focus on economic development, infrastructure, and education. I want to control government spending. I think our current mayor and staff have done a fantastic job of that. I oppose higher taxes and fees. One thing that keeps coming to mind is an example of economic development is Amazon decided to set up shop and fulfillment center in Alcoa, Tennessee, and the worldwide economic leader for Amazon said the 3 reasons they chose Alcoa was because they had workforce development, they had a friendly business climate, and then the most important thing was great public schools. And if you close your eyes, that's Kingsport.
Colette George is next. We're looking for that 1 to 5 year vision for the city. That particular issue you'd like to address, or a problem you say needs to be solved, or a project that you want to see implemented in its 1 minute.
I want to keep Kingsport on the track of being the city that people want to live in and raise their family and retire in. In saying that, government doesn't change overnight. We need to keep what we have now and keep improving it. We have been working on paving roads, putting in infrastructure, upgrading downtown. We have been working on keeping our parks upgraded, adding new features, and expanding them. We always have invested in our schools. And to grow any community, you must have strong education. So we've done a lot of things, but we need to continue to focus on our strengths to keep attracting people to live here and stay here. So my vision is to make Kingsport a better Kingsport than it is today.
Up next is Sarah Buchanan. You good on the question?
Yes, thank you. So in the next 5 years, my vision for Kingsport is creating conditions that are conducive towards small businesses and other businesses who want to come to the city to eliminate the financial or legal constraints that could prevent them from being able to start or grow their businesses. I also envision stopping the urban blight that we're seeing in Kingsport. We're seeing a lot of empty storefronts, and also our neighborhoods are getting run down. So fighting that issue and dealing with it specifically in areas like Lynn Garden, Borden Mill, and downtown will be a high priority for me. Also, a big concern for me is homelessness, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. I've volunteered for homeless organizations for a while now, and I believe we need to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment of the homeless issue to find out why people are homeless, how they are coping, where they are going for services, and then tying that to a funding plan where we can get federal and state funds for wraparound services. So by electing Buchanan to alderman, you'll see decreased urban blight, increased economic growth, and decreased homelessness in Kingsport.
Up next is candidate Wesley Holmes. Another question?
I'm good, Josh. Appreciate it. Thank you. So what I want to see in Kingsport, I want to see downtown thriving, restaurants, bars, social scene. I think that would be fantastic over the next 5 years. The next thing, the pandemic, I think we're primed for it. People are looking to get out and socialize. Also want to see us starting the plan of implementing a smart city. There's going to be a lot of conveniences coming with self-driving cars and all that stuff that I think certain generations are going to look for. So I think that's quite important. On a personal project that I think would be neat, I would love to see Seaman Hill, for all my mountain biking friends out there, see Seaman Hill turned into a really well-done mountain bike park. It's a quarter mile from downtown Main Street. No other cities really have that close, and that brings in quite a decent amount of adventure tourism. So we can see bicycles all over Kingsport, and people also using all of our restaurants and going to bars and the pubs and enjoying that. So I think that could draw, and it's probably not an overwhelmingly expensive project because it's mainly dirt trails that we would actually be doing up there, and I don't think there's much more use for that land. So that's what I'd like.
Up next, candidate Joe Carr.
Where there is no vision, the people perish. We need to continue lowering our city's debt by decreasing some of the stupid spending. We can't afford millions on bike lanes, sidewalks to nowhere, moving power lines across the street, and gaudy public art, especially when we're not fully funding our first responders and we haven't caught up on paving our streets. By doing those things well, we can rekindle Kingsport, which means regaining our role as the leading community in the region, having a globally competitive workforce, and a growing and dynamic entrepreneurial economy that will allow us to keep our tax rates attractively low.
Thank you. The final person to answer the third question tonight is Betsy Cooper.
I feel that a vibrant downtown is the heart of the city. And so my vision for Kingsport is to increase the emphasis on our downtown, making our downtown a place that people want to live, play, and visit. I know that we have that initiative is starting with the Brickyard Park and the pump track and the back track, the back park that's going in, and also with the development of the walking and bike trail up on Seaman Hill. What I also like to emphasize is economic development. I think that's on every elected official's radar. And economic development is twofold. It's where you live and where you work. And in Kingsport, we've been working on those two things in the last couple of years. We've seen some real progress about housing initiatives. There's between 200 and 300 houses that are planned in the planning stage right now. And then two of our major industries have reinvested in Kingsport. So economic development is one of our big issues too.
Very much. All right. I believe we're ready to move on to question number 4 now. And the question is pretty specific in nature. It's a 1-minute question. Paul Montgomery, you'll answer it first. Thank you for already being ready to go. Here is the question, candidates. With the exponential growth of online shopping, retail recruitment and retention is a challenge for all cities. National retailers are closing brick and mortar locations at an alarming rate. Therefore, the future of retail, I think all of us would agree, is a bit uncertain. Shopping centers are owned and developed by private entities, not cities. For the most part, that's the case. How aggressive should Kingsport be in providing tax breaks and incentives to the retail sector? So that's the key question. How aggressive should the city of Kingsport be in providing tax breaks and tax incentives to the retail sector? It is a specific question, and it is going to be answered first by Paul Montgomery. It is also a 1-minute question.
Thank you. Kingsport needs to be as aggressive as it can be as money has available, because we're competing with other cities that are offering incentives as well. What Kingsport did with Domtar in retaining 150 jobs was great, and we need to make sure that we are able to compete with the incentives, but also we need to have agreements whereas we'll sit down and check step, make sure we are doing what we say we're going to do, and the company that we're providing incentives are doing what they said they want to do. We cannot forget, though, the businesses that we have here already. It's important for us to take care of our current businesses, make sure they are well, make sure that they are able to compete too. So it's easy to hold on to what we have, and I would encourage us to do both. Provide incentives for the new, but also ensure that our current businesses are doing well.
Candidate Bob Harshbarger is up next to answer the question, how aggressive should the city of Kingsport be in providing tax breaks and tax incentives to the retail sector? We're specifically focusing on retailers here. Go ahead.
So for retail, the one thing that I've learned just being in small business is the way you set yourself apart is customer service. That's how we're going to have to set ourselves apart from online retailers. Amazon has built a second-to-none customer-focused approach, and so for businesses locally to, I guess, compete with this, they're going to have to focus on things that online retailers like Amazon and Walmart and such that they can't provide. The one thing I do believe, one part of economic development is you do go out and you recruit businesses, but I also believe you need to focus on business development. And that's going and trying to give those different incentives to businesses that are already here, the ones that are already paying their rent, the ones that are already employing your friends and family, already paying their taxes. We should invest back into our communities. But with that being said, I don't believe the government should be picking winners and losers. I believe that the market should take care of itself.
Colette George up next about retail.
The pandemic did change everything. People are used to ordering it online and it being delivered. We're picking it up. The future of retail is in question. What we have to look at when we look at incentives is what is the gain for the people we represent. If you have a developer that is going to come in and bring stores that are not in competition in this area, that provide a service to our citizens that they need, we need to look at what opportunities and incentives are available. We do not need to be offering incentives to bring in businesses and retail that are already in our region or will directly compete with our current retail operations. We're looking at where we have leakage, what we need for our citizens here so they can shop locally. And when we bring in more people, we will have opportunities downtown for unique stores to do well.
Up next, Sarah Buchanan.
Kingsport has a decision to make about how it should be supporting its small businesses and its large businesses. And I don't think we should be aggressive about providing tax breaks to retail sectors for large corporations who are not based here and whose funds do not flow back to the area. Rather than focusing on national cookie-cutter retailers whose products can be purchased online, we need to be sure that we can offer a more intimate experience to the customers and also encourage people to shop local. But it should go beyond just raising awareness to promote local businesses, linking them with regional and local supply chains, and providing technical assistance for business development guidance. And we should also consider how we can encourage local procurement, especially mandating that at the city level, so that we make sure that what we have in the city, our artwork, the paper towels that we buy, anything that we can buy locally, we're doing that locally and bringing the money back into the economy. So I think we need to encourage small businesses and micro businesses in Kingsport and reserve the incentives for our local firms. Thank you.
Wesley Holmes up next, talking about incentives for retail. How aggressive would you be?
So if we're going to do any incentives, the ROI just has to make sense, right? And I'm not saying that we should promote those because I do think the retail sector, it has moved online. We also get tax revenue from that. It might not be dollar for dollar what we get buying in the local store. But tax dollars still do, sales tax does still flow back in online sales for Amazon stuff. So as was said before, the sector that can emerge the most right now in retail, small businesses, niche or boutique businesses. I saw one recently in downtown, and they mentioned they were opening a store in Bristol, and I know they're leaving Kingsport, and then I found out they were opening another store in Bristol. They already had one in Nashville. They'd opened up 3 or 4 stores, and their core store was Kingsport. That's a great story. I want to see more of that occurring. So really supporting our local businesses, driving stuff downtown, having events downtown that will drive foot traffic to the doors, making sure that that's open and free, I think is really where we have to focus our time, not giving businesses outside the region incentives to just come in when they'll probably do most of their sales online anyway, is the way I look at most of that. So I think our local small businesses need most of the support, especially as we exit the pandemic. They can grow fast.
Up next is Joe Carr.
I think the focus on retail is actually a little bit misplaced. I believe in local and limited government. The BMA can't put a gun to the head of the CEO of Costco and make them come here. They have to want to come here. And that starts by keeping our kids in Kingsport with an increased emphasis in vocational training. That starts by attracting new industrial jobs to Kingsport. We should be recruiting gun manufacturers that are fleeing left-wing policies in blue states. With Bristol Motor Speedway right down the road, we would be a perfect location for research and development for a company like Tesla that is leaving California due to high taxes. Out-of-the-box thinking will rekindle Kingsport, not tax incentives for companies that will leave as soon as those tax breaks expire.
Up next is Betsy Cooper.
I think tax breaks and incentives offered to the retail should be all evaluated independently to see if they make sense for the citizens of Kingsport. I think that we need to use our voice to encourage all of our citizens to shop local. I know that on a personal story, my daughter is at Amazon. She buys everything through Amazon. There's 5 or 6 boxes at her door every day. And so when Dick's left, she came to me and said, "I can't believe Dick's left Kingsport." And I said, "When's the last time you walked into Dick's to buy anything?" So I think we need to realize that there's a cause and effect. If we order online, then the brick and mortar stores are going to go. So we need to encourage our citizens to shop locally, to support our local restaurants, our local stores, our local businesses. And that's the way that we can grow and keep businesses in Kingsport. Thank you.
By my calculations, you're the last person to answer this question, Jay. It's more the focus on retail than incentivizing.
Well, tax breaks and tax incentives wouldn't have kept Sears or JCPenney's here. Better leadership would have. Now, when it comes to Best Buy, Old Navy, really what's been going on at the Pavilion, I think that a change in leadership may have prevented that. I hate to say it. One thing that Kingsport needs to thrive upon is our uniqueness. You know, Powell's was founded here. I'm very proud to be from Kingsport. I know when I'm coming home, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Powell's. But tax breaks and tax incentives for really any company. Joe mentioned Costco, and I talked about it earlier at the Rotary Forum, but we could use something like that here. We could use an IKEA here, something that has good paying jobs for our citizens. Costco is the company is owned by its employees. My first Costco experience was in Tokyo, Japan, and I was amazed. And then I'm like, I didn't even know it was in the United States. So, anyway.
Thank you. And Bob Harshbarger will answer our 5th and final question for tonight first. So if you want to come on up. And this question is focused on business, which we've already spoken about quite a bit. We've talked about expanding existing businesses, attracting new businesses, and creating jobs. Part of job growth involves having a workforce to support the business and industry that you're trying to get and keep. What would you do specifically to promote and encourage rigorous K-12 education standards, supporting Kingsport City Schools in their daily work to graduate college-ready and work-ready graduates? And how can we support access to and funding for higher education and industry-specific skills certification programs as a city? How would you support that if elected? That's a big question.
Long question.
Guess what? It's a 1 minute one. So
Gotcha.
you're up first, Bob Hirschbach.
Perfect. All right. So the gist of that question I received, I think that career and technical education programs similar to that are something we need to focus on. Now, I do know that the BMA has their lane, the Board of Education has their lane, so I can just make assumptions of how they will perform their job. But one thing that I would encourage is CTE programs, because I believe that if a student can start as early as middle school, make their way up, get certified by the time they walk out of that door, ready to start in the real world, they're already a step ahead of a lot of kids who are going off to college. A lot of times they have higher paying jobs, they're highly skilled, in high demand. And I believe in the long run that'll lead to entrepreneurship, because a lot of the trades tend to go and create their own jobs and hire other people to be with them. So I think that in itself is how we're going to set up for success.
Question, what would you do to promote and encourage rigorous K-12 education standards, supporting Kingsport schools and their work to graduate college-ready and work-ready graduates? And how would you support access to and funding for higher education and industry-specific skill certification programs? 1 minute, Colette George.
In terms of what the BMA can do to encourage the schools to provide certain education, we can do no more than what the parents do here and what our industries do here. What we can do is work with the industries and the schools in terms of what is available for higher education training. We do have a commission that we appoint people to, and we are constantly talking with the leaders of the industries here in what type of employees they need, what training those employees need to be able to have, and certifications to move on to the next level. We have been in the process of working with the group that trains contractors, and we're now going to be able to open that form of continuing education and certification program here in Kingsport. We are desperate for housing, and what we need is workers, and we're going to be able to offer some training for that.
Sarah Buchanan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, that's okay, thank you. Kingsport City Schools already compete to a high standard across the nation, and we have rigorous K-12 standards, and we perform better than most Tennessee school systems. But there remains a lot more to do to ensure that we maintain the high standards and prevent backsliding, especially because students have missed out on schooling a lot this year. So we need to make sure that they keep up their standards. But maintaining standards is not enough for us to keep up with the educational innovations that are taking place in other parts of the country. So to keep Kingsport City Schools competitive and a magnet to draw families to our area, I propose identifying an international baccalaureate program to bring to Kingsport and defining how it will integrate programs into the curriculum, which will also generate jobs. Teachers for these programs will have about 200 teachers. They'll be earning about $60,000, $65,000 a year. If we could get the certification and bring it here, it would be a magnet and draw for Kingsport. We would also work with credentialing authorities to make sure curricula is in alignment with industry standards, and also promote public-private partnerships to make it viable and cost-effective. And so that is my plan for dealing with the school issue, but right now I think we have very strong schools, we just have to maintain our standards.
Wesley Holmes. And again, if you need the question.
Yeah, so world-class education has really been a staple in Kingsport for as long as I can remember. I wasn't beneficial enough to use that education. I grew up in Martins County. Still great education though. So we have to continue to set high standards for our children and the school system. I think This does attract bright minds and big thinkers and hard workers. So I think it's also an economic driver in the region to have a great school system like this. At the same time, does everybody need to go to college? No. We really need people that are out there ready to work, and actually those careers pay really, really well. So we need glide paths from our vocational and training schools to go straight into the jobs that they're looking for. I think that's very important, either whether it's manufacturing or working at Eastman or pipe fitting or building a house or HVAC. I think that's important. But in a few areas where I think we really need to look at future-ready jobs for those that want is rocket science, drones, programming, AI, and ML. That's the stuff of the future. Space flight is becoming more and more real. So I think we need to see how do we have those minds in the region, and can they be in our educational system as well.
Candidate Carr, could you repeat the question? Sure, happy to. Specifically, what would you do to promote and encourage rigorous K-12 education standards, supporting Kingsport schools as they work to graduate college-ready and work-ready graduates? And how would you support access to and funding for higher education and industry-specific skill certification programs if elected? 1 minute.
I worked on Representative Tim Hicks' campaign, and he is sponsoring a great bill at the state level that will put struggling students coming out of middle school into a vocational high school track to help get them steady, good-paying jobs coming straight out of high school. This sort of innovative thinking is exactly what we need to rekindle Kingsport. I hate the word rigorous. It's cliche and it doesn't mean anything. Administration would constantly use that word while I was at DB, and all it ever amounted to was more busy work. If we really want to get Kingsport back on track, the quickest way to do that would be to ensure our education system is contributing to a goal for our city to be a thriving center for entrepreneurship. We need to make sure our students are ready to compete in the business world right out of high school. Far too often, our best homegrown minds and talents go off to college and never come back. We need to change that dynamic in order to rekindle Kingsport.
Betsy Cooper.
This is definitely a question near and dear to my heart. I taught in Kingsport City Schools for 31 years, and then my daughter now is a 6th grade science teacher at Sevier. So the standards that Kingsport has, I know that what they are and what kind of people we produce. And I would expand the question even further. They talked about strong K through 12 skills. I now work in a preschool with 6 weeks old through 4-year-olds, so I think we need to expand the skills to go down to preschool level. We have adopted in our center the Common Core standards so that our children, when they leave our preschool, will be ready to go into kindergarten. Getting on the other end of that, the higher ed, we have RCAM and TCATs downtown that do some of the training that we're talking about. That do the training to get people job ready. So I think we need to work on both ends of the spectrum, the preschool skills and then also the higher ed skills that we do well in Kingsport. Thank you.
Candidate J.S. Ford.
I mentioned a Job Corps type program earlier to address giving our homeless a hand up and training them on a skill that would be useful to them in a workplace environment. This is something, if we did bring it in for the homeless, we could partner with our high schools as well and train our kids in trade skills like welding, electrical, automotive. We already have a great higher education center here in Kingsport, and our high school system and city school system is second to none. So I'm with Sarah on that. Just keep doing what we're doing there and make sure that that's maintained. But an outside-the-box approach would be a Job Corps type situation that would train people in those skills without the expensive costs of going to college. 15 seconds. 1 minute goes by really quick, but that's all I have to say.
Very much. And the final person to answer the 5th question is Paul Montgomery.
As witnessed tonight, education is the greatest equalizer that we have, whether you come from a poor background or a middle-class background or a wealthy background. It's the greatest equalizer that we have. So it's important that we maintain our public education here in Kingsport because it is a a great incentivizer for others coming to our city. The best thing I would do is make sure that the staff and teachers are currently there that are supported by the BMA as well as Board of Education. And I think it's important for BMA to support the Board of Education as well. The other thing that I would do is I would listen. I would listen to what the experts, and that's the folks that are on the ground there, what they think is best for the city and for the education system. Those are the things I would work on if I was elected to the board.
Mr. Montgomery, and thank you, candidates, for answering the 5 questions that we had tonight. We appreciate your time. You guys know how to keep it moving. We appreciate it. We're now going to move to the closing comments. This is going to be 2 minutes for each candidate to really just make a final appeal to you, maybe to touch on the topic that they would like to, they wish I'd asked a question about, or maybe something that they brought up earlier and they, man, if I just had a few more moments, whatever. It's 2 minutes and it's yours. We're going to shuffle it up now. We've drawn again in hopes of making this completely fair, all the names. And how about we just draw one at a time? How's that sound? All right. First up is Joe Carr. You have 2 minutes to make your closing remarks.
I'd like to again thank the Chamber for having me and everyone at home for tuning in. I believe the future of Kingsport has never been brighter, but we have to take advantage of the opportunities in front of us. We have to stop stupid spending, catch up on road paving, handle homelessness, fully fund the police, keep our kids in Kingsport, and we have to lead the way in the region again. Regionalism is something that is going to happen. It needs to happen. And it needs to be good for Kingsport. And it will be if Kingsport leads it. I'm running to rekindle Kingsport. Let's lead the way in the region again. We can't take our ball and go home. We have to step up and lead the way. We are a proud industrial city that is home to one of the largest international exporters in North America and a world-class education system. Our scientists helped create the atom bomb. What does it say about us if we're now too scared to work with big, bad Johnson City? It's the 21st century and we're in a global economy. We can't put our heads in the sand. Let's rekindle Kingsport and let's lead the region again.
Thank you. Up next for closing remarks, Paul Montgomery. You're up next. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you again for letting us come here tonight to talk about the issues that are important to Kingsport. People that know me know that they will say that I'm consistently consistent. So a vote for me, you would get someone that has consistency in his background. I have strong Christian values, as well as business experience that will help make those important decisions that the city will be making over the next few years. I have leadership skills, such as been witnessed here, even in this room, as chair of Kingsport Chamber of Commerce. I have collaboration and consistency building skills, which are important in going forward, that we do have everybody all working together for the betterment of Kingsport. I have worked with important projects here in the city, and that's one of the things I think that is uniquely qualifies me to serve. Such projects such as the Manview Conference Center and the revitalization of the Riverview Community Hope 6 project I worked on. The All-American City Initiative, that's when we brought this whole region together to make it a showcase for our country. And we were one of the 10 best cities in the country at that time. All these and my business background continue to be a differentiator for me, making me uniquely qualified. I want to serve. I've got the stamina to do that. Vote for me on May 18th, or if you want to go early, April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next for closing comments. Betsy Cooper, 2 minutes.
As I thought about how to close, I would like to talk about how I made a decision, and I know that the others on the board of aldermen have heard me say this before. I taught kindergarten for 31 years, and so when 2 children came to me with an issue, I listened to both sides of the story, and I knew that the truth was somewhere in the middle. So I had to decide where which one was telling more of the truth. And the same thing with any decision I make. I hear 2 sides to every story. I listen to both sides to every story, or every opinion, and then I know that my decision needs to be somewhere in the, I have to decide in the middle, which is what I'm leaning closer toward. Most things that we decide on the board aren't 100%, you're not 100% for it, 100% against it. You can see that the validity of both sides of the argument. So I bring a common sense, because that's what I've dealt with my whole career. This morning at Rotary, I got a text that a 2-year-old had been another 2-year-old in the gym. So as soon as I left Rotary, I went back to deal with that. So I just got a text just now that one of my 3-year-olds tested positive for COVID. So as soon as I leave here, I've got to go deal with closing the classroom. So I make common sense, spur-of-the-moment decisions all day long in my career as a kindergarten teacher, in my career as working in the child care center. And you have to bring common sense and compassion and a love for the children, a love for what you do to your job. And that's what I hope to bring to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. A love for what I do, a love for my job, and a compassion and commitment to Kingsport. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say good luck as you help your kids, for sure. Up next, Bob Harshbarger is going to give 2 minutes of closing remarks.
All right, I'll keep this one brief. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a licensed pharmacist. I take pride in being a pharmacist because I'm on the front line of defense for all kinds of elements. I'm the most accessible healthcare provider that we currently have, and every day I'm providing care to patients. And that's really what I want to get across, is I'm here for you, the residents of Kingsport. I want to be the most accessible that I can be. If you don't find me at the drugstore, you can call me directly and I'll be here for you. Common sense all the way. My folks have taught me that from the very beginning. I'm going to admit I don't have the answers to all the questions, but I do have a foundation that I always go back to, principle driven. So when it's all said and done, I would greatly appreciate your support and your vote on May 18th.
Closing comments continue now with Sarah Buchanan. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I'm running. In 2016, my father passed away, and that started a time for me really looking into reevaluating my life and what I was doing. And even though I had a diplomatic passport, could go anywhere in the world and travel, I decided that what I was doing was not really fulfilling for me. So I renewed my faith, got back into my church, and I started re-examining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I found that it really wasn't fulfilling. And I also felt very strongly about what was happening in my hometown. The issue of homelessness, the issue of urban blight, the issue of safety and criminality in our city is very, very important to me. And it really breaks my heart to see that more money and time will be spent on a dog shelter than it will for people who are homeless. So I am going to bring the compassion to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And I want you to understand that this wasn't an easy decision for me. I really gave up a lot so that I could pursue this. I had to leave a job in the federal government just so that I could run for office. But what I feel is very important is that Kingsport look at each individual problem not as a one-off solution, but that we have a comprehensive, integrated plan for each thing we are trying to accomplish. And everything is linked together, and everyone who is working in the city is working from the same page of music so that we all can work towards a common goal. And part of that really starts with planning and making sure that we follow up and have good metrics and good data. So these are the reasons why I am running for alderman, and I hope that I've earned your vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. J.S. Moore is next with closing remarks in 2 minutes.
Well, Kingsport needs a change. Needs a change in its leadership. It needs a change in its way of thinking. I think that this city, it needs to be more inclusive. We need to change our perception of, I've always thought of Kingsport as a haves versus have-nots, and now more than ever, I see that. When blocks were put on our benches a few years ago, I had stayed out of the public spotlight, and then I threw my hat in the ring. That's the same time when this medical monopoly was going on, and I see things that have happened since that time that we were warned about. You know, ballot health care, this medical monopoly that this whole region is now dealing with. The only way to really combat what's been happening there is to bring in a hospital authority, appoint 2 or 3 people to oversee and make sure that they're following the rules, that they're not violating a patient's bill of health. And, you know, we should be #1 for public health in Tennessee, but we're dead last. We need people on this board that will say no to ballot, that will say no to the big money players in this city when no needs to be said. There were 40,000 signatures that were collected that opposed that medical monopoly, yet it still happened. Our current mayor, our 2 current aldermen that are running for their seats, in my eyes, didn't listen to the people. In fact, I was at a meeting with them and they talked about getting rid of the public comment section, when to me, they're supposed to be there for their citizens. Vote for J.S. Moore, May 18th or May 28th, vote early. Vote for someone that's not on this board. Kingsport desperately needs a change to move forward. Thank you.
Next up, Wesley Holmes. Closing comments in 2 minutes.
All right, thanks, Josh. Thanks to the Chamber and all of the sponsors for tonight. I got to say first, I love Kingsport, and I have a real reason why. Sitting here at this meeting, I get a text from my neighbor, and he says, "Hey, just want to check if everybody's home because it's been cold tonight. Do you need to unhook your water hoses and turn your spigots on?" Right? I mean, that's amazing that you get that in this town. So East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, we're really nice to each other. So I love living here. You know, so we're undergoing massive change that no one's seen. We're coming out of a pandemic that no one's ever experienced in our that's alive today. So really, a lot of the old rules that we live by are out now. You know, we've got to really get ready for the future. If you watch any of my videos on Kingsport.com, our responses to the Chamber, I throw a lot of weird ideas out there. Not weird, but just, you know, they're out of the box. And some of those work, some of those don't. But I think that's kind of thinking we need in Kingsport right now, to really say what's going to be different and what are people looking for. You know, so that's what I want to bring to the Kingsport Chamber, the Kingsport BMA, is that forward-looking future vision and try to help align the city with that, because there's some stuff that some of it's pretty technical, some of it makes a lot of sense, but I want to make sure the city is aligning itself and actually saying this is where we want to go. You know, you get 3 votes in this election. If there's 2 people that have spoken tonight that you're really passionate for, I think that is fantastic. You know, I think you should reserve at least 1 vote for the future, and that'd be a vote for me, so thank you.
And the final one. The closing remarks, Colette George.
Thank you. I'm Colette George, and I have served for the last 8 years, and I'm running for one more time. What I have found in listening to all the people's answers to these questions is that one of the main issues facing Kingsport is communication. When we make decisions, we are given packets of information. There's lots of studies done. They're data-driven decisions. And there's a lot of information that when you're on the board gives you the background why certain things are done one way versus another way. In a city government, you've got to take the lowest bid. You can't guarantee to use local vendors because as a government, you're looking at the taxpayer money and you have to go in and have competing bids and accept the lowest there's a lot of information and answers that the questions that people have done that has already really been worked on, has already been looked into, has already been tried and tested. And we've worked really hard to accomplish some things that have come or are in the process of happening that have been discussed. I think the real issue facing us during the pandemic is communication. How do we inform the citizens of Kingsport what is happening in Kingsport, what projects are being done, what data was used to determine those projects, what the cost of individual issues are. We're going to be receiving COVID money, and this money has a lot of strings in terms of how we spend it. And a lot of us have pet projects that we would love to advance, but when you're looking at all the strings attached, you know, we are blessed to have a wonderful city manager and a great staff that can dig into these problems and what the procedures are and what the regulations are. And we need to find a way to inform our citizens of the things going on and the data behind those decisions. Thank you very much for hosting us.
And that concludes our Candidates Forum for the evening. I want to say thank you to every one of you who came. Again, there are 9 candidates on the ballot, and 8 of you are here tonight. We appreciate you all for giving your time. I want to say thank you to the Kingsport Area Chamber of Commerce. It has been my perspective over many years that this is a place of great excellence. And so to Miles Burdine and to his amazing staff, thank you all for taking the time to do this and for doing it so well. I know you'd like to have had a different type of a forum tonight, but you made it work, and you made it work very well, and I appreciate that, and it's my honor to be a part of it. I want to just reiterate what the candidates have said tonight. Early voting is about to begin, April 28th through May 13th. Election day is May 18th, and I want to say that again, May 18th. And absentee ballots can be requested through May 11th. As some of the candidates have said here tonight, a very small portion of the population of eligible voters in Kingsport will make the very big decision of who will be on the BMA. So if you're watching this tonight, we encourage you to go vote, exercise that hard-earned and fought-for right, and to do so responsibly. You also can share this video, whether you're watching it on Facebook or through a live link through the WJHL.com page. We invite you to let your neighbors know it is almost election day in the city of Kingsport. On behalf of the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce and all these candidates here, thank you very much for watching at home. And candidates, once again, thank you. I know I can hear the applause.